Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. It really is a bit of a cliche at this point to say that time really flies as you get older, but wow, I didn't realise it was March already. Despite the lack of videos so far this year, I have been quite busy with a number of things, so I'm going to give you an update on those today. As well as the usual Castlevania GG Shinobi and tutorial stuff, there's also been some exciting news in the Mega Drive development scene. However, first of all, let's start with Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I had originally intended to have the Royal Chapel demo out last month, but in recent weeks I've really been jumping around to different parts of the castle and doing the graphics and the enemy eyes for different parts of the castle. For example, the catacombs and the Colosseum and even Oryx's quarters. Over the next couple of weeks, however, I'm going to refocus on the Royal Chapel so I can get that released. And then a couple of weeks after that, I'll be able to release the library too. And then a couple of weeks after that should be the catacombs and so on. Looking at what I've done so far, especially over the past few weeks, I think I've got a good feel for how long each level should take, and I think I can keep up that rate of one every 2 or 3 weeks for the next year. So by the end of the year, I think we should have a prototype level at least of every part of the game in. Now each level I release as a little ROM will be maybe 70% complete. So the reason for that is, firstly, there'll be some maybe extra tricky parts which I don't want to handle right now, so I want to skip by in favour of getting more levels into the game. And secondly, there's some things which I want to hold back for the final version. There are some neat surprises and boss fights which I want to be a surprise. Of course, one of the advantages of taking this approach of having lots of little ROMs throughout the year rather than one big one at the end of the year is that I can take everyone's feedback into account when releasing each subsequent ROM. So with each ROM, I'd appreciate people's feedback on the controls and the difficulty level and the enemy AI and any bugs you might meet, and then with each subsequent ROM, as well as releasing a new level, I can take the opportunity to make some adjustments to Alucard's movements and controls or the enemy AI and so on. Occasionally, instead of releasing a Castlevania level, I will also be releasing some GG Shinobi levels too. After putting in more work in the first few weeks of this year, most of the first draft of the graphics for the game are already in place, so I really want to focus for GG Shinobi on getting the controls done and the enemy AI and so on. And just like with Symphony of the Night, I look forward to everyone's feedback so I continue to polish it off, and we should have all the levels in the game by the end of the year. Okay, now let's talk about the tutorials. I think the most requests I've been getting recently for tutorial topics have been how to transition from one screen to another, how to load new stuff into RAM and into VRAM, how to load in multiple enemies, and basically how to structure a game, how to have a title screen, menu screen, then level 1, level 2, level 3, boss fights and so on. So I think if you haven't programmed a game before, then I think that's something that's very tricky to do. I remember when I did it for my one, there wasn't any template I could find on how to do this, especially for the Mega Drive, so all I had to do is I had to use my knowledge of C programming language and what I knew about the Mega Drive and try and work something out, and it seems to be working okay so far. I'm not sure if my way is particularly orthodox or an unorthodox way of doing it. I'm sure people will tell me once I show my methods, but that's what I'm going to teach you. So I'm going to really focus on this year's tutorials on really kind of structuring the game, and we can also do stuff like, for example, tile scrolling and also water effects and lots of other things too. Up until now, most of the tutorials have been very modular. Each video has had one particular topic and it's been its own kind of standalone ROM, but obviously when we're talking about things like doing menu screens and loading one screen and cancelling another screen and fading in and out and loading enemies and levels and so on, this only really makes sense in the context of an actual game rather than individual small ROMs. Otherwise we can't really do it, especially when we get to stuff like how do you enact like a live system when you lose a life, how do you respawn, how do you count the lives down, continues and so on, in game over screens. This only really makes sense in the context of a game, so I think it's about time on the channel that we start to do a project together, an actual game together. Now from the footage you've been seeing on the screen, you'll probably guess which game I've chosen for this purpose, and that is Alex Kidd in Shinobi World. The reason I chose this game in particular as our little tutorial project is not just because I'm a big fan of Shinobi and Alex Kidd. What makes this game uniquely suitable for our purposes is the fact that it's a very short game with lots of interesting game mechanics. Now obviously a game being too short is normally not considered a good thing, but for our tutorial purposes we want a very little short project that's not going to take up too much time. Despite being such a small game, it's actually packed with lots of interesting game mechanics that we can use as tutorials. For example, we have stuff like ladder climbing and wall jumping. It has a melee attack. You also have a long range projectile attacks. There's really a lot going on in this which is otherwise a very simple 8-bit game. So that means, as well as getting to learn the stuff that I mentioned before about how to construct the game, how to go from level to level without overloading the VRAM, how to loading each level and loading the enemies and the graphics and so on with each level. We can also learn lots of these interesting game mechanics too. I think at this point a lot of people who follow tutorials already got their own game they're working on, so they probably want to continue to use the lessons they're going to learn from this little mini project in their own game to continue on with that. But if there are any Shinobi or Alex Kids fans watching and who would like to contribute, then I think it would be nice, instead of making this a straight port, to make it like a Mega Drive remake, a 16-bit remake of this 8-bit game. So if there's any, for example, pixel artists out there who would like to contribute to enhancing the graphics a bit, and then please let me know in the comments. Or if there's a musician who'd like to produce, Mega Drive FM versions of the soundtrack, then let me know. And if there's anyone, even if there's any kind of maybe level designers who, as the game goes on, even wants to maybe, as I said, the game is pretty short, it's just 4 levels, but if anyone in the future wants to add like another level, if they want to go to the trouble of designing a new tile set and want to try out their game design chops by producing a new level and a new boss fight, then we could do that too. Become like a group effort everyone's working on together, so everyone can contribute something in their own way. In terms of a good example, I think the Mario All-Stars game is a really good example of what we could be aiming for here. So, the All-Stars obviously a remake, a Super Nintendo remake of the 3 original Mario NES games. And I think they did a really job of keeping true to the originals while enhancing it with a bit of parallax scrolling, some extra colours and so on. So I think that's the kind of style change we should aim for. So as I said, if anyone's interested in helping out in this project, then let me know. I think we can make a really good game out of it. When it comes to the timescale when the new tutorials for 2025 will be released, I think it's best that we wait until the new SGDK updates. There's been lots of incremental improvements over the past year, but I've heard this due like a consolidated major update in the not too distant future. Sometimes when there's a big update, there's like some of the code you wrote before, there's a few problems with it, so I want to wait for the updates, and then I want to construct a basic little demo of the Alex Kid by myself just for the first few, so it can cover enough for the first 10 or so lessons. And then once I think it's all working, just so I know in which order I'm going to teach things, and then once that's done, I'll start releasing the tutorials. So as usual, there'll be at least 12 tutorials this year like there was last year. I think last year there was maybe 14 or so there'll be at least 12 this year, and as soon as I have news on that, I'll let you know. And speaking of news, to finish off this video, I want to talk about the latest news from the Mega Drive development scene, or more specifically the Mega CD development scene. For every video I do on the Mega Drive dev scene, I always get people ask about, where's the Mega CD games or the 32X games, and of course one of the reasons there are so many Mega Drive games is the fact that we have the SGDK that we can use to make games for it. As anyone who's done the tutorials know, it's not a game engine as such, it doesn't make things so easy, you still have to put a lot of hard work in yourself, but it does make it a lot more approachable to people. So you have to put the effort in, but you have a standardized set of tools which then you can use to create your game, which is one of the main reasons we've seen such an explosion of development on the machine these past few years. While there have been some development tools created for both the Mega CD and 32X, most notably by Vic and his team when they created the great 32X Doom Resurrection game, none of these have been compatible with the SGDK, at least up until now. Thankfully, that situation has begun to change in recent days. A gentleman by the name of Mateus Bayes, whom you may know from the Snatch-alike Mega Drive game currently in development Quartz, has recently been taking some of Vic's work on the 32X Doom port, specifically the Mega CD sections, which use the Mega CD sound chips to produce better sound effects and also load data from the CD, and he's been trying to integrate that into SGDK. Actually achieving this really isn't an easy job, but Matt, using his expert knowledge of the hardware and a lot of hard work, has managed to get it working. While experimental at the moment, Matt said that he plans to release a video on this once it's all working perfectly, and he'll release that on his YouTube channel, so I will put a link to that in the video description below, and I recommend you go there not only to keep your eye out for this upcoming video on the Mega CD SGDK development, but also to check out his previous videos on how the Mega CD and how the 32X works with the Mega Drive, for example. It goes without saying, I'm very excited about this new development, and if successful, then obviously I want to be able to use it in my own games too, for especially the Castlevania game. It'd be great to have some high quality sound effects and also some sampled or CD quality music, and who knows, if he manages to get the ASIC chip working, that'll be even better. We can even do some scaling or rotated sprites, but I'm not sure if he'll go that far, but we'll wait and see. Even just having the sound effects and the CD player working is great enough as it is, so you can't ask for too much, but who knows what the future holds. And once this integration with SGDK becomes common knowledge, hopefully we'll start be seeing more Mega CD features in the new Mega Drive games currently in development. We could have like almost like a Mega CD enhanced versions of these games. Okay, so that wraps it up for this spring update video. Thanks very much for watching. If you're interested in this type of content, then please subscribe.
I'm interested in this.
And if you'd like to support the work I do, as well as get sneak previews into what I'm currently working on, then I have a Patreon, and any support is much appreciated.
You won't go unrewarded.
Until next time,
farewell.